Hey everybody, Mitch Wilder here with the Ahead of the Curve podcast. And of course, I've got my co-host here, Micah Frame. Micah, how you doing today?
Doing good, buddy. Glad to be here.
Thanks for being here with me. So I know that this is really my idea. We'll see how well it works. It's just, it's something that I find a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners that I am talking to struggle with the concept of delegating financial systems, right? As business owners, we've probably all read the E-Myth. We've probably all read books about delegation and know that we need systems. We know that we need to delegate out to people. It's like we ignore that concept when it comes to financials. And we see a lot of business owners who they've got somebody that's their spouse doing their books, all these different things that really are not ideal for the stage that they're in. So what we want to talk about today is building a financial team. Who should be on that and why? So Michael, we've talked about this in the past. We'll just give, kind of an overview. Our opinion has always been that the team needs to be an attorney, a CPA, and a bookkeeper. And then as you grow, I think it's beneficial to have a good relationship with a banker. We find that typically is a good team and a good setup for 6 and 7 figures. It gets a little bit more complicated once you get into the higher 7 figures and beyond that into 8 figures. Let's talk about each of those people on the team. Who's the first person that they should hire?
First person in our experience should either be your attorney or the CPA, and you really want to be contacting both of them as soon as possible, and basically as soon as you're looking to start the business. So those, whether you're going to be starting a really big business, if you're just doing a little micro business or side hustle,
Side business, right?
Those are, regardless, those are the two that you want to be in contact with first.
Okay. And the reason being is because there needs to be some coordination of the type of business, what the potential that business could be making is, so that they have the right corporate structure for what they're doing. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, that's kind of the core of all of it, is that when you're starting a new business, you're typically going to want to create a business entity for that. And doing that without the CPA and the attorney involved makes it fairly likely that if there's not missteps, there will be missed opportunities.
Sure. So the attorney's job is to set up that corporation, right? Make sure that that's properly registered. And the CPA's job is to help them to understand, what type of corporation they should have that attorney set up, so that they can basically have a little bit of a tax plan, you could say, to a minor degree as they move into this. I just talked to a friend of mine a couple weeks ago. He set up his corporation. He just kind of did it based on what he thought he needed to do. He's 2 years in. The first year, he didn't really make much, so it wasn't too big of a deal. But the second year, it's causing some problems. I shouldn't say it's causing. It caused some problems, right? Because he didn't take that step. So
yeah, absolutely. Because the attorney is looking at it from a liability standpoint, possibly an ease of exit strategy, or if you're passing, they're looking at it from the legal standpoint. We're looking at it from the tax planning side, and not only what would be the optimal tax structure from an income tax standpoint, but especially if you're first starting out, the number of owners you have can be a factor. We'll see it all the time where people will, a husband and wife will set up an LLC and they both own it. But unless you're in a community property state, that's going to necessitate a partnership return.
Got it.
And that's even TurboTax now. They charge $1,000 for entity returns.
Whoa.
If they're helping you prepare it, but that's just TurboTax. So even if you do it on your own through TurboTax or something, that's still going to be hundreds of dollars, which again is fine if the scale of business makes sense, or if there's some other non-tax strategies that are in play there. But if you're just thinking about, hey, I'm going to start this tiny business, we don't have much going on, it's just me and my wife, just having one of you own that saves you several hundred to thousands of dollars a year just on a tax prep and administrative cost standpoint.
Yeah. Well, and primarily what we're talking about today are again 6 and 7 figure organizations, or organizations that will can easily become that, right? Within the first year, 2 years, we want to see them be past that 6 figure mark. One thing that I've noticed before we move on to the other team members is that a lot of times when you're starting out, you're like, I don't know if I want to pay the fees to have the corporation set up. I don't know if I want to pay the consultation fee for the CPA. All these different things can come up, but really, if this is not done right, this is the way that I see it: is you're either going to miss opportunities for deductions that you're entitled to, which are not usually in the hundreds of dollars. They're usually in the thousands, right? Or you're going to owe more than what you had anticipated, which again is not usually in the hundreds of dollars. It is a mistake in the thousands. So it just makes sense to do this right from the beginning.
Right, because if you're having the wrong corporate structure, and this just doesn't even get into the tax strategies you have ongoing to maneuver things, but just having the wrong corporate structure can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Having the right corporate structure but the wrong salary levels, like there's too many things to get into just on kind of, because we're trying to do this faster than we've explained it in the past.
Sure.
There's too many factors to get into, but if this is going to be a real business, like you said, we're talking 6 and 7 figure businesses. If you're going to run this seriously and make any sort of significant profit, it is close to guaranteed that not consulting with professionals at the beginning, at inception, is going to cost you more than what you're paying for those professional fees.
I love the CYA there. It's close to a guarantee. Yeah. But it's true. So you've got the setup, you've got the corporation set up, you've got your CPA contact, your attorney contact, a couple $100 for the initial consultations and filing fees. Business is off and running. It's making some money. It has expenses, right? It has a bank account. It has a tax ID number, has all these things, right? Who's the next hire? Who's the next person that needs to be on the financial team?
Depends a little bit, but I'd say typically it's going to be a bookkeeper. And again, this is under the assumption that you are on your way to being a 6 or 7 figure company. A couple reasons for that. One is that it's just not a lot of times the business owner will try to do it themselves, and that's just not a good use of their time. It usually doesn't get done in a timely fashion because they either don't know what they're doing or just hate it and dislike it. So it gets put on the back burner. And there's a really good chance that even if you are doing it on a regular basis, it's just being done wrong. I can't tell you how many times we have it to where someone says, yeah, my books are already ready for you to do the tax return. And we pour it into their QuickBooks Online and say, nope, no, it's not. And
it's not
and
done.
basic things of like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, your balance sheet shows a bank account of negative $300,000. So I don't think everything made it in there right.
Right.
So
I hope this is not right.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We got way bigger issues if it is. So just in terms of, you need the books on good and accurate books in a timely fashion. And not to say it's impossible for a business owner to do that, but sure, that's not typically what we see. Bookkeepers are not super expensive to hire to begin with. It's a very good use of your money, and for 10 different reasons.
Right. What's the, just off the top of your head, if somebody's going the hourly approach with a bookkeeper, what's the average hourly for a bookkeeper right now with all this inflation we've just encountered?
We haven't looked for freelancers in a little while. Most of the time it's agency level freelancers who are approaching us. But my guess is if you're just finding someone local who actually knows what they're doing at all, like 50-ish bucks an hour would be my guess.
Okay. So you've got the 50 an hour, but they're not working 40 hours a week, 20 hours a week, 10 hours a week. They're working.
No. And at 50,
hours,
they should be doing it at a reasonably good clip.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody who's good, they're worth that 50, right?
Right.
As it might take somebody who's a $50 an hour bookkeeper. Uh, Obviously, this is wrong, but just to illustrate the point, 1 hour, and it may take a $25 an hour bookkeeper 3 hours, right?
Well, and especially if you run into any issues or things don't look right, the $50+ an hour person is going to be able to identify those issues, fix them, versus the person who doesn't really know what they're doing could burn quite a few hours trying to figure out what their mistake was.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. Well, and I think that, to focus on this a little bit, there's a couple comments I want to make just on this bookkeeper part of it, because it is a transition from when the owner or owner spouse or however that arrangement works. There's a transition of like, I've been doing it to my, we're hiring a bookkeeper, we're delegating that out. One of the things is that, when it comes to these financial systems, you're asking the question of who is the person who can help me to organize this. And the bookkeeper is such an important role in the financial team, because they're if we look at a system basically has an input and a process and an output, right? The CPA is working with the output,
Right.
right? They're working with the
Exactly.
output to determine what is the tax implications, how does this need to be taxed. If the numbers are being put in and input incorrectly and miscategorized in the process, that causes problems from a tax standpoint.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. It causes problems from a tax standpoint if we're filing incorrect. Even if we catch it, the planning that we've been doing on an ongoing basis is going to be skewed because we were working with the output we were working with
was
was
wrong.
wrong.
Yeah.
So for your CPA, for your attorney, for your financial advisor, for the banker, if you're trying to get a loan, everyone else on the financial team, if you don't have up to date and accurate books, they're all working with, it's either going to really diminish the value they're providing you, or it's going to make it impossible for them to do anything because the numbers either don't exist if they're way behind, or they're just so inaccurate it doesn't reflect reality at all.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing people will try to do is try to do catch up bookkeeping, right? They just try to do all the
Mm-hmm.
bookkeeping at the end of the year, right? And again, it's much better, in my opinion, even when you're small, even in my opinion, even before you're at the six-figure level, like between that 50,000 and 100,000 level, to really have a bookkeeper just maintaining this. It's much easier for them to maintain than try to catch it all up. And the other benefit is that you're going to have financial reports at the end of every month to review, or the beginning of the next month to review, and just see where you're at, right? It's so valuable to me to have that data.
Oh, absolutely. The only time it once you can afford it at all, the only time hiring a bookkeeper almost always makes sense. It's one thing if you as the business owner are going in and doing your books every day and you're looking at the reports and you're actually using that information, because then you're going in, it takes you 5 minutes to plug in the last few transactions. Realistically, that's just not what hardly anybody does. Like you said, most people, it's this catch up bookkeeping all at the end of the year. So you've lost out on any opportunity to look at those KPIs and see what's going on, make decisions based on it.
Yeah.
So it's if business owners knew what they were doing and kept up with it very, very consistently, you can make a little bit different argument. But the reality is that is a very small minority of business owners who do that if they're trying to
Yeah.
keep their own books.
And ultimately, especially even if, let's just say that it's something that you're good at and you like doing, it still is probably not the best use of your time.
Right.
To be honest, I like doing it. I'm weird. I
Mm-hmm.
like spreadsheets. I like numbers. I like having them up to date daily. It is not a good use of my time.
Mm-hmm.
I find it people are going to turn this off and hate me for this. I find it relaxing. I actually enjoy it very much, but it's just not a good use of my time.
Yeah.
Now the other two members of the team that we talked about were the banker and the financial planner. And I'll talk about those just for a minute, just because those are kind of ones that I insisted be added on to our financial A team, right? And the reason is I'm a big fan of I'm trying to think of the saying. It's like dig your well before you're thirsty. I like having the team connected with one another. A lot of times the owner ends up, you've got this team, right? So picture yourself in the center. Around you, you've got your attorney, your CPA, your bookkeeper, your banker, your financial planner. That's how I see it in my head, is they're around you, and you become the central hub or the go-between each of them, right? The CPA, or excuse me, the financial planner might need some documents from the CPA, and the banker might need some documents from the bookkeeper, right? And you end up being the go-between, which is really, really frustrating. While you are going to need to be involved in the communication, there is a lot of power to having the team connected with one another, and it actually benefits the entire team, right? Bookkeepers want to be connected with good CPAs because they can refer clients. Financial planners want to be connected with CPAs. Bankers want to be connected with financial planners, and so on and so forth. So it's good to have the team connected so that they can communicate with each other on your behalf. But
way less run around
way less
in those
run
cases.
around. You don't know all the terms, right? You don't know all the terms. They can communicate with one another on a different level and not have you miscommunicating documents that they need that you didn't remember or didn't write down, right? I've just seen it so many times that all of these people on your team are willing to do that, right? They're willing to do that. So you should be delegating it out. You should be connecting them. Not only is it going to benefit you and keep you from being, the central hub, but it's also going to benefit them because they want to be connected to one another. It makes their job easier and it creates opportunity for them. Building this financial team, we didn't talk about like somebody to do payroll or a payroll processor, in a lot of cases that's going to be included, but ultimately this is the core team. The entity set up originally with the attorney and the CPA helping you to create that tax plan initially, then bringing in the bookkeeper to make sure that the books are accurate and that the CPA has accurate financial records so that they can maximize your tax benefits and your tax plan. And then where the banker comes in is, I don't care what business you're in, eventually you're going to need a loan. Dig your well before you're thirsty, because you're going to need a loan. You're going to need something. Even though it's a standardized process for a lot of this stuff, a good business banker can kind of help move things along and make that process easier.
Relationships matter. Ultimately, in anything we're doing, relationships matter.
So much so. And finally, with the financial planner, if you do all this right, this isn't the first person on the team, but if you do all this right, your business is going to be spitting off more cash than what you had planned on, probably than what you've had before, right? And you need to put that money to work long-term, short-term, for your future and your family. And a good financial planner or financial strategist or even a money manager, depending on how much you're making, is going to be somebody that you want to be connected with. So that's who should be on a financial team. You should be delegating it out to them. Micah, do you have any thoughts to add to that?
No, I mean, I think you're dead on. And again, financial advisors, when you've got additional money to deploy, but not only is that going to be hopefully pretty soon that you're going to need that because the business will be profitable, but if you're starting to work with them initially, just from a spending management standpoint, setting up goals for what do you want to do, when do you want to retire, what are the things that you want to accomplish. We found that if people are working with someone earlier before they really blow up and then lifestyle inflation happens, if you're starting with someone at the beginning, it makes that saving and investing a little bit more automatic versus trying to then make big changes and claw back some of your spending once you've grown accustomed to living like that.
100% that lifestyle. So Well, again, as always, Mike, I appreciate you being here with me today and sharing this information with folks. And for all of our viewers who are enjoying, if you enjoyed this video, you want to see more videos like this and things that we talk about in other aspects of business, make sure you hit that subscribe button below. And we'll have some links in the description where you could book appointments so that you can ask questions, or join our free community where you can ask us questions about these things, and we're happy to answer those. But we look forward to connecting with you, whether it be one-on-one in person or in the next episode. So thanks for joining us, and we hope you have a great day.